I'm Bree, welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to do an author spotlight and chat with you today about Beverly Jenkins. Beverly Jenkins is one of my all-time favorite romance authors, one of my favorite authors, period. If you are new to my channel, I am a romance reader. I didn't start reading romance until 2017, just a few weeks shy of turning 30, and it was actually in 2018 that I picked up my first Beverly Jenkins novel. But once I started really reading romance and interacting more with the romance community, I just kept hearing, you need to read Beverly Jenkins. And I was just really nervous because I kept hearing she is an historical romance author. And I had already tried my attempt at reading historical romance, and I will say, as a reader, I had never really focused on things like representation and really seeing myself in stories. I hadn't really been focusing on that at this point in time. Honestly, when I picked up my first historical romance and tried to read it, that I really became aware of, I'm not going to really be able to see myself or imagine myself anywhere in this story. So I had kind of counted off historical romances. I was like, I don't want to read these stories take place during time periods that are very adamant reminders of like where your position in life would have been. Kept hearing, you need to read Beverly Jenkins, so I had no idea where to start. I just kind of picked up a title on a whim and it became one of my all-time favorite books. That's why I wanted to jump on here and do this video, because I have so many people reach out all the time like, where should I start with Beverly Jenkins? And I'm like, I was there. So the stack that I have here today, I feel like these are all really wonderful starting points. So kind of a little bit of background on Beverly Jenkins. She has basically always been surrounded by books ever since she can remember. Ever since she was a baby, basically her mom was reading to her. And then as she started to get older and just being at the library, having library visits, reading authors like Victoria Holt and Phyllis Whitney and Mary Stewart. And I fangirled so hard when I saw this, because these are all authors that I have been very slowly collecting their books. Me and a group of booktube friends last year read through all of Mary Stewart's novels, and this fall we started tackling Phyllis Whitney's. I found that really fascinating. I'm always fascinated by like what authors' favorite books are, or some of the authors that they were reading as kids or who have inspired their writing. And for some of her writing life, she was actually the editor for her elementary school's newspaper. And then as an adult, she was working the reference desk for a pharmaceutical company and started writing romance just kind of for fun. And it was at the suggestion of a colleague that she actually seek out an agent and a publisher, and in 1994 she published her first romance, which was Night Song. So I'll leave some links down in the description box below. I know Smart Podcast Trashy Books has done a few interviews with Beverly Jenkins that I really love, so I'll leave links down below to those. And then I remember seeing on Netflix, they had a documentary on romance and it was called Love Between the Covers. Beverly Jenkins and Brenda Jackson and so many other romance authors were on there, and I rewatched that as much as possible. I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but I will leave links to it down below. If you have not watched it and you're a romance reader, you have to watch it. So kind of what you're gonna get with Beverly Jenkins. She does have a mixture of both contemporary and historical romances. But again, when I was introduced to her, I was introduced to her as this big historical romance must-read author. She likes to think of American history as a quilt. And on that quilt, a lot of the patches have been removed. Those patches that have been removed are African-American history that really they just don't want you to know. And she really does focus in her writing on parts of African-American history that you're not taught in school. This kind of leads me into my first recommendation. The very first Beverly Jenkins that I picked up, and one that I recommend all the time, I absolutely stand for this book. Honestly, out of this stack, if you're looking for a place to start, I would probably say it would be this one, but that is Forbidden. And in Forbidden, we meet Ryan and Eddie, and Eddie is a woman of color and she's heading out west. I believe she wanted to open up a shop. She wants to open up a shop out in California, and she meets a cast of characters along the way, and then one towards the end, he seems completely trustworthy, and they get to the desert and he's basically like, you either have sex with me or you gotta get out. And she's like, okay, you can let me out here. She's walking through the desert and she's basically found almost dead by this gentleman named Ryan and his friend. Ryan is a man of color, but he is passing for white. His logic is he can do more good for black people posing as a white man than he can as a black man. And this is their romance. Ryan, however, he is engaged throughout most of the book. He's engaged to a white woman who has no clue that her husband is black. The gist of the story is Ryan has been passing for white. Most of, like, basically everyone there except, like, I think his close friend, they think he is in fact a white man. And obviously interracial dating is not a thing. So even though they both are having these feelings for each other, Eddie is just like, there is no way we cannot do this. This is not a thing. So he really has to make that decision of, do I want to keep living this way or do I not? Do I want to pursue something with this woman or do I not? Because obviously, you know, he's been doing what he's been doing, which is for a good cause, but things definitely come into question now that Eddie is in the picture. So this next one is like the title that I kept getting recommended the most, and that is Indigo. This follows Hester and the Black Daniel. His real name is Galen, but I always call him the Black Daniel, and I just loved him so much. And he is brought to Hester's home up in Michigan. He's been like badly beaten. He's basically a hero in the underground world of like helping slaves escape to the north. He just feels like he's really been betrayed by someone and he's like trying to figure out like what's going on. And this is their romance. This one is just, Forbidden felt dangerous, but Indigo really just felt dangerous the entire time and had me on the edge of my seat. And I learned so much. The way that she captured how African Americans treated each other and how some of us looked at our skin color. Some people looked at it as a curse, did as a way to help slave catchers and actually get paid for it, you know, not a lot of money, but to get money. And it was just really interesting to see how people were turning against each other, and completely understandable during the time period. I mean, it doesn't make it right, but it was so insightful. It was really insightful to see how even amongst Black people, colorism and issues like that really played an effect just for survival. The romance between Hester and the Black Daniel, it's just, Hester deserved this love story. Oh my God, you guys, this next one. So this one is part of a series, and I will say you should read the series, but if you just so happen to be at the used bookstore and come across this one, just pick it up and read it. And that is Destiny's Captive. And this is Noah and Pilar's romance, and it's part of her Destiny series. I enjoy the series so much. I love the family aspect. Each of the previous books in the series follow Noah's brothers. I love their matriarch. Noah is a pirate, and he finds himself chained down to his bed thanks to a female pirate, which is Pilar. He goes out to search for her and they end up crossing paths again, and this is their romance. There was a discussion in this book towards the end of the book that I was not expecting. Like, I knew Noah had went through some things, but oh, when he reveals what those things were, my heart just absolutely broke for him. You get a sense throughout the entire book that he's just really battling some demons, and it's really one of those situations where he needs to go to the place where those haunting memories are like coming from, make amends so that he can move on with his life. There are just certain books that like small pieces really stick with you, and this is definitely one of them. I loved their romance. They're both so adventuresome, but like Noah is definitely dealing with some demons that he has to make amends with, and I don't know how he does it, but he does, and it's beautiful. You have to read it. And if you want a more recent release, I know I talk about this one quite often, but that is Rebel, and this follows Valinda and Drake. It takes place in New Orleans during Reconstruction, and there's just so many layers to this book. Valinda was born a free woman of color. She lived in New York State, but she comes to New Orleans wanting to teach newly freed people how to read, and it's so dangerous. It's so racist. Even amongst Black people, there is a big class and colorism system, and it's not even safe to walk down the street. And I remember the entire time that I was reading it, I was just like, she doesn't even have to be there. Like, just go home. Like, you don't even have to be in this city. I had to keep reminding myself, this is the Women Who Dare series. Her purpose is so much bigger than her. It's so much bigger than her environment and everything that's going around her, and it's so beautiful. Yes, the romance is wonderful, but there's just so many other things in this book. There are scenes towards the end where she is in her train and teaching people of color how to read that just brought me to tears. Like, I was on my way from Texas to Missouri finishing this book, and I was crying. My husband's like, what's the matter? And I was just like, you have to read the book to understand. Next book will be coming out, I think, in July, and I'm not even gonna do any cheating, but I have a feeling, I know who I hope the next book follows. It's is called Wild Rain. I haven't even said the title. I know who I hope that it follows, but I'm not even gonna sneak and see if I'm right, but I love, love, love this book so much. So in anticipation of Wild Rain, I will probably read another used book that I have hauled, and that is Something Like Love. And this follows Olivia and Neil, and Olivia wants to open up a seamstress shop. So she leaves Chicago and heads to Kansas. On the way, it sounds like her train is robbed by Neil and his crew of outlaws. And then she gets to the town and she becomes the mayor. So now she has to deal with Neil and his outlaws like on that level, but this is their romance. So those are the Beverly Jenkins romances that I recommend as really good places to start. I feel like Beverly Jenkins just does a wonderful job of capturing that regardless of how terrible and difficult the time period may be, people have still found ways to be happy and fall in love. And I just think that that is a message that really, really shines through her books. And it's just so relevant, regardless of when the books were published or the time period that they take place in. It's still a very relevant message. If you are already a Beverly Jenkins fan, let me know some of your favorites down in the comments below. Give me your go-to places to start if anyone is new and haven't read her before. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye.
Makes no difference if it's sweet or hot.